What happens when a cyclist is hit from behind by a road vehicle? We interview Gretchen, an avid road cyclist. She was hit while cycling and is on the road to recovery. We find out the what, why, and how, and what you can do to make the roads safer for yourself and others.
So, Gretchen, tell us a little bit about your background and your involvement in cycling.
So, I am in my mid 50s and I've been cycling on the road for 25 years. I first got involved right around my 30th birthday and mostly ride alone or with one or two other people. Um, I live in a rural suburb of Washington, D.C., which I chose mostly because of the high quality of roads for cycling. Many of our roads are 50-mile-an-hour roads, but they have a 6 to 8 foot shoulder. And if they're not that type of road, they are backcountry roads with very little vehicular traffic.
Mm,
I
mm,
am not a racer, but I am pretty fit for my age and I enjoy pushing myself and being outside in nature.
yeah.
That's what I love about cycling. I ran when I was in my 20s, but you can't cover as much ground. And I like the workout, the heart workout without the joint workout of cycling.
Mm, mm.
In the last 5 years, I've picked up electronic trainer, smart trainer. So I'll train indoors in the winter so that as soon as the nice weather comes, I can be back out on the road. I probably ride 5 to 10 hours a week, depending how long I can ride on the weekends. And I don't do a ton of group riding unless it's an organized charity ride.
Mhm.
Um, my schedule just hasn't allowed for it. So,
And what sort of bike do you ride? Is it a gravel bike or a race
no,
system?
it's a specialized Emira road bike.
Mhm.
Um, a probably $2,000 bike when I bought it eight
Mm,
years ago. I believe that an athlete shouldn't have equipment that's better than the athlete is. And so I don't trade up much because I always figure I can lose a lot more weight a lot more quickly than I can afford to spend on my bike. So,
that's right. That's a wonderful expression. I don't know whether you use it in this country of having all the right gear but no idea.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
All right, thanks, questions. That bit of background there. So you had an incident, and why don't we talk about that incident? But first, can you just tell us a little bit about what's happened since the incident to you? I mean, what were the consequences of the incident?
So I spent 3 weeks in a trauma center and then a rehab center. And since then, I spent the next 3 months kind of at home working part time from my desk, the rest of the time in a hospital bed because I live in a 3-story house and couldn't get up the stairs.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, I've been doing PT twice a week since my accident. I have not had any other follow up um, medical surgeries, just check ins. And so I feel very fortunate about that,
Yeah.
given the severity of my accident that I, broke a bunch of bones on the inside, but that was pretty much it.
Right.
So I am back on my trainer for the last 8 weeks. It took me a while to be able to lift my leg up over the saddle. Um, my FTP or, you know, fitness level is about 67% of what it was prior to my accident, but I am
Hmm.
improving.
Yes.
Um, I can ride for an hour,
Hmm.
but I
How long
still have
ago,
some difficulties.
and how long ago was the incident now? So
It'll be it's almost 6 months.
Okay. Okay. Do you feel you'll get back to full health and a full recovery, like with no
I
hang-on?
hope so. The last 6 weeks have been kind of a plateau, and that's discouraging. You know, you're on a improvement, and then you plateau. But as we all know, that's how life goes, right? Whether it's weight
Mm.
loss or fitness, sometimes you just have to work through it. So I'm hopeful that I will make 100% full recovery.
Yeah. And what about like mental health? Do you feel you're traumatized? Do you think there's some PTSD? How's that going for you?
Um, I love cycling outside so much that
Mm.
I am hopeful I can overcome any lingering emotional fear. My husband does not feel the same way.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, so when the nice weather comes, it's going to be a conversation. Again,
Mm.
I've done a mostly solo riding, and he found out about my accident because I didn't come home, and he did find my iPhone and saw me at a trauma hospital.
Yeah.
So he's pretty opposed to me going back out on the road.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, where I live, there aren't many gravel or trails.
Mm.
Um, so it's road or nothing.
Yeah, right. Okay, so thanks for that. So from what you can remember, what do you believe happened on the day of the incident?
I was at the end of I was 20 miles into a standard 22-mile ride. So I would always be home within 2 or 3 minutes of my end time. I was on one of our 50-mile-an-hour roads with a very wide shoulder. It was about 7:15 in the morning on the East Coast, so it was bright daylight. I was on the shoulder wearing a high-vis jersey, wearing my helmet with a LED reflector on the back of my bike,
Mhm.
or flashing light on the back of my bike.
Okay.
And a driver says he fell asleep. And I hit his windshield and ended up on the ground. Um, he left his lane, came into my lane. My left pedal did not come unclipped. So unfortunately, my foot got yanked out of my left pedal or
Mm.
left shoe. And then my significant injury was a broken pelvis in many places.
Mm.
And then the yanking of that ankle and that leg, pretty much the extent of my injuries, a lot of road rash, a really nasty black eye. Although my glasses were unscratched, my helmet was crushed, but
Mm.
the bike was definitely, the rear wheel came, you know, into shreds and the frame was bent. Um, but my injuries, my eyes are fine. I didn't lose any teeth. I have no internal organ injuries,
Right.
just a bunch of broken bones and some yanking.
Wow. So when you describe the incident, it sounds like it's a two-lane road and you were in one lane and the driver was in another lane. It wasn't a dedicated bike lane, it was actually a road lane that you were riding in.
It's a shoulder. It's a dedicated shoulder with a line drawn, and it is about 8 feet wide. And he came from his lane over the white line into my lane. It is not a car lane. It's not an automobile lane. It is a dedicated shoulder. If your vehicle died, you could fit your car in that lane.
Mm.
But it's not a travel lane for cars. It's for cyclists and runners and potential expansion because it's a county road. So if they ever needed to widen that road, it's already paved, all the maintenance is done, but it's a shoulder.
Yeah. And from what you described, it sounds like you were using clips. You were clipped into the pedals. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you were doing everything right, Gretchen. I mean, we don't know what the driver was thinking or doing, do we? I mean, it always occurred to me that it's a kind of a convenient excuse to say I fell asleep because I do hear that, when there's incidents. No, I don't think anyone's going to admit, no, I was on texting on my phone. No one's going to admit to that.
No, they're not. We've got the body cam footage from the sheriffs that arrived on scene. And I have not had the appetite to watch it yet, but my lawyer went through it and he was interviewed. He had been out drinking the night before. He was
Mm.
actually on his way home. And he was probably hungover and very tired and probably did fall asleep.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
But yes, it's distracted driving, whatever you want to call it, right? Whatever the reason, he was not fully awake and aware behind the wheel of the vehicle.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like there was a lot of infrastructure which would support cycling. Do you think the infrastructure was sufficient? I mean, could there have been better infrastructure for a cyclist in your instance?
I don't think so.
Mm.
Um, I've lived in this area for 17 years now. I've been on all the roads. And like I said, one of the reasons I chose to live where I live is because of how friendly the roads are for road cyclists.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose the only thing that I can think of is some kind of physical barrier. There are
Sure.
places in New York, for example, where the traffic goes down their lane and then there's parked cars and then there's a cycle lane. So there's almost like this absolute physical barrier that could prevent someone swerving into them. You don't see that very often.
No.
And many people, of course, ride in the lane of traffic and of course the traffic goes around them.
Yes. And in our state, we do have a 3-foot rule law for drivers to make sure they give a minimum of 3 feet to a cyclist before they pass.
Yeah,
So the law is there to support safe cycling on shared roads.
yeah,
But you can't fix people not paying attention behind the wheel.
yeah. So we've talked a little bit about infrastructure. Is there anything that do you think you were missing on your bike in terms of safety equipment that maybe could have helped?
I'm a little bit of a fearless rider. I have never worn one of those mirrors on my helmet or a mirror on the handlebars, which maybe would have alerted me.
Mm.
I don't think there's a whole lot else.
No.
And I'm not sure that I would have been able to react quickly enough.
Yeah.
I was on the right side of the driver, so he was coming from my left side, and between me and, it would have been the ditch. That would have been my choice, obviously, if I had been able to think and make a move. Or maybe I would have hit the brakes hard enough that he would have passed me rather than hitting me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to know.
Yeah. So in terms of technology, I mean, there are systems that have been put into cars for drowsy driver, they call it, where it would alert the driver and wake them up. So I know of Tesla, for example, if you engage the auto driving system, you still have to keep inputting something into the steering wheel or making some kind of activations. You can't literally lie back and read the paper whilst the car's
Yeah.
driving. But obviously he's not in an automatic system, but there are these drowsy driver systems coming on, and perhaps that might have helped because it perhaps would have alerted him or woken him up if that was the case.
Well, the other thing is in the newer cars, because my car has what you're describing, but it also has lane assist. And when he would have gotten to the right lane, it would have pulled him back into his lane. when he headed
Right.
to the white line. So
Yeah.
there's that as well. Unfortunately, his car was 10 years old, so way older than
Right.
any of those features.
That's right. And there's lots of those kinds of
Yeah,
features. There's even the feature of ADAS, I believe it's called, Advanced Driver System, where it communicates between cars. So it knows the other car's there because of its data about the cloud and its geopositioning, the two of them. And perhaps there's some way we could integrate that into the bike systems where the bikes are part of that ADAS system. And he would know that there's a bike coming up. But if it's an old car, it's not going to have that either. So,
yeah,
and that's going to be, I think, always the problems with relying on car technology or infrastructure for that matter too. That wasn't the case in yours, but it just takes so long to roll out those systems, even though bikes are becoming more commonly used, especially in Europe, for transportation, and we're seeing movements to do better for infrastructure and technology. It just seems so slow moving.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's going to be these 10 years old, 20 years, always going to be an old car that doesn't have it. Yeah. Well, I mean, talk a little bit about Hawkeye. From what you know about Hawkeye, do you think that could have helped in any way in this particular instance?
I think more information is always better. The question is, can the rider react to that information quickly enough?
Yeah.
And that is a question I can't answer.
Mm.
I'm not a video game player,
Mm.
and I feel like I'm not that quick.
Mm.
Um, I I think my biggest fear as a road cyclist has always been the unanticipated in front of me.
Yeah.
So squirrels, if you're riding on a footpath, the dogs or the toddlers that you can't anticipate what moves they're going to do, because road riding is on roads that have very clear rules about where everybody's supposed to be. I've always felt much safer in that environment than, say, even mountain biking, where you don't know what you're going to come up on. Um,
Mm.
Maybe I've become complacent in my years of riding, and because I've been mostly safe, I do think information is always useful. Whether
Yeah.
you can react to it or not, if I had had half a second to break, that could have made all the difference. And
Mm.
and maybe that would have been enough.
Yeah.
Um, I don't remember clearly the actual impact, so I don't know that I could have changed the course of things. But I sure would have liked the opportunity.
That's absolutely right. I mean, the way Hawkeye works is it presents that graphical display on the phone in front. So there is the necessity to scan down, and we tried to make that user interface very easy to see the situation behind you. But does require your eyes keep going up and down. And the second thing we do is we do have audible alerts. And that's something we're still working on and developing, because perhaps an audible alert which says something kind of very urgent that's coming from that side, or selling you something is coming from that side, would give you a chance to sort of move. I mean, they say a reaction time is around about 200 milliseconds, um, uh, which means you could effectively start to turn in 200 milliseconds. Of course, the bike got to then respond. Maybe it's just enough to get you out of trouble. It's really just comes down to those milliseconds, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think audible is really important
Mhm.
because as you know, as being a cyclist, keeping your eyes on the road, and it makes you a better car driver, right? Because you need to always be scanning the road surface, what's coming on the left, what's coming in front of you, what's coming on the right. Your eyes are gathering all that information. Where we're
Mm.
not gathering a lot of information is our ears. And um, So I think that is way more effective in terms of something out of the ordinary.
Yeah, or grabbing your attention.
Yeah.
And you're not-
And as I think I said to you before, I mean, I think having that audible be loud enough that it could break through to the driver could also help.
Right, right. Yes.
Have a horn that, yeah, it might almost deafen me, but it should also let the driver know that, hey, something's not right here.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. That's something we have not experimented with Hawkeye, but one thing we have done, which we haven't talked about, is the video recording feature, actually being able to see exactly what happened after the incident. Do you think you needed to have some recorded video of the incident?
I would love to know exactly what happened. Yes, that would have been. I don't think I could watch it,
Hmm.
but I would love to know what happened.
Yeah, yeah.
Just was he slowly drifting? Was it one of these things where, he stopped, so he knew he hit me?
Hmm.
Um, was it that he was slowly drifting? Was it that he yanked into my lane? Like, not that that changes what happened, but I think even for building your database, right? I
Yeah,
mean, that's great information.
yeah.
And obviously in building a legal case, it would be good too.
Right. I am very cognizant of our time limits, but I wanted to ask you one last question. Is there anything that you wanted to say about the incident or bike safety or something related to this that I haven't asked you about?
I would love the US drivers to become more bike tolerant.
Yes, yes.
That's, to me, that is the single biggest problem we as cyclists face, that drivers view us as an impediment to their getting where they need to go.
Right.
And I don't commute on my bike, and I would love to be in a situation that I could.
Mm.
But we need to change the thinking of the American driver and really get them to be accepting of other modes of transportation.
I believe you're right, and it's going to be hard to change that. I mean, it's always a polarizing. Certainly, I notice in the US there is this polarizing. It happens at all levels, and I don't think that's getting better either. I think the social media is tending to create these divisions. But I agree with you. It just definitely is an attitude. Gretchen, this has been an absolute pleasure having you on. And talking to you about your experience. I really hope you get back to that full recovery.
Thank you.
And I want to touch base with you again soon and just see how you're getting on. But thank you.
Well, and best of luck with Hawkeye. I think it's
Thank
a
you.
great product. Keep riding, keep safe.
Well, there you are, folks. I'd like to wrap this up with a couple of key points that I took away from the interview. She says more information is always better. Totally agree with that. You can process information very, very quickly and respond to it if you have it in front of you. And Hawkeye offers that situational awareness visually and audibly for you to know what's happening behind you whilst you keep your eyes up. I would love to know what happens, she says, although she would not watch it. Now, a video recording function would have really helped her determine what really happened, and maybe, just maybe, there's a lot more to this story that we are not completely aware of. Thirdly, US drivers to be more bike tolerant. I think worldwide we'd like people to be more bike tolerant. I understand the frustration. I want to go from here to there. I don't want to be slowed down. It's frustrating when you are, and we don't like waiting behind the wheel when we have to get somewhere, especially if we're in a rush. I get it. However, it's a major concern for people when people are frustrated or not paying attention or dozing behind the wheel, and very, very serious consequences. And I hope more US drivers and worldwide drivers become more aware of the dangers they're putting others in and really caring about that. And finally, she says, I think Hawkeye is a great product. Well, thanks, Gretchen. We really appreciate that. I know you haven't used it. You're aware of it, and we're very proud of it too. If you'd like to see more content like this, subscribe to our channel and drop us a note in the description. We always respond to people's comments. And as Gretchen says, keep riding, keep safe, and as we say, I hope that helps, and thanks for watching.